But welcome to the new people. Ricky, I believe it's your brother's birthday today, so maybe we can dedicate the class to his holy soul.
What's his name? You say the name? Okay. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So I want to invite you guys for a little meditation. So take a second. Try to get into a comfortable position, whichever one it is. And if you can shut your eyes down, come to your breath, just how you would normally breathe.
Are you going to say never give your mother without being God?
I will not say that.
If yes, I'm not breathing.
I will not say that. I won't say that.
Forgive your mother, forgive
yourself.
Here's your fruit. Here's fruits.
Catch your mango.
I am going to talk, which is a little contradiction, or whatever. It's going to be a little bit of a contradiction to what I'm going to be saying, but I'm going to be talking. So, we're breathing. Now, as soon as you bring your attention to your breath, I'm saying breathe normally. As you normally breathe, you might find it's a little weird because you don't even know how you normally breathe. It's like, is this deep? Is it shallow? Because breathing we're doing all the time. But how often do we bring our attention to it? Not very often. We're normally up in the mind thinking about all the things I have to do in a long time from today, or the disasters that are going to happen. Come back to your breath. And the point is that why do we obsess so much with what is going on in our minds? It's totally unuseful. So try not to think about what I'm saying and just come back to your breath. Now try to see if you're comfortable in your body even, or if it's uncomfortable. And it doesn't matter where you move. As soon as you start thinking about if it's comfortable or not, it becomes uncomfortable. So return to your breath. Forget about it if I'm comfortable or not. Just focus on your breath. You're doing it anyhow. So pretty much we use our mind to try to control and bring about some safety. And it does the total opposite. It just brings on more stress and more anxiety, which is mind-boggling and humorous at the same time. What if you can just observe the thoughts that come up and the discomfort without chasing after and trying to fix it, but bring your attention back to your breath, what happens in that moment? Because there's just this false sense of security that the mind gives us. If I had enough money, I'd be relaxed. If, I don't know, all the other stuff that come up that are going to fix everything. And then we feed that thought with attention. We bring our awareness to that thought and it becomes very uncomfortable. But its whole life force is actually just the attention that we give it. If we can bring our attention back to our breath, let that thought will fade away. It doesn't even exist. It's not really a thing.
really love
Can
it.
we do?
I really
Can
love
we
it.
You could do it-
elaborate on that? Like,
We could do.
I wanna
I
think
think let's
about-
tie it into the Maimer a little, because this Maimer talks about avodah zarah.
Ooh.
Or doing the Maimer. I'm a little nervous. Okay, there's a lot of people today. Lehavin, inyan, rosh, chodesh. Tafresh mem.
I'll hold your hand.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes, I don't want to bring awareness there because then I'm more nervous. So like I'm just.
But there are
You can go
times
now.
where you're meant to focus, like specific times to work on, but it doesn't have to be forever and always. I mean, I think
Right.
there's concrete times that
For
we're meant
sure.
to do a certain amount of days.
For sure.
Otherwise, we're just, you know.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But I think a lot of it is like, are you engaging with the darkness? That gives it life. Or do you focus on the light and the darkness doesn't exist anymore? Its whole life force is that attention that we give it. If it's there, we need to notice it. Not necessarily like take the time to go and look for it. Or maybe you can, if that's what, if after your intention is, it's okay. But I'm saying if you're experiencing crazy anxiety in the middle of the day, that's like, it's not important for now.
That's the intention.
You have like a tool with you at all times to shift your attention. And then it's just gone, because it's not really in existence. It's
Right.
feeding off your mind. Your mind is feeding off your
That's amazing.
awareness.
Isn't that what the source says about like the darkness is just a
Absent of light.
imagination,
Right.
but it's really all light.
All right. It wants the light. It lives off light. So if you give it the light, now it's like, okay, give me more, give me more. Just like bring the light somewhere else.
Mayor
And what your
Kay
best-
says where energy flows, that's where whatever
Energy
flows.
goes, no?
Yeah, something like that.
You also
It's
notice
so
if you're in an,
true.
if you do this a lot, you'll see that you have so much more energy because your brain's not working so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally,
Wow.
what happens at night? You go to sleep.
Yeah.
Why do you feel refreshed in the morning? Because all you did was breathe throughout the night. Your mind was calm. Now you have energy. If you can do that during the day, just breathe a lot without chasing after every thought that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it does, but like bring awareness. Oh, I went running. Let me come back. You have way more energy. The mind is not it overworks, and then at night it's just like you're
So
toasted.
It's not more breathing, it's just awareness.
It's just shifting the awareness. You're breathing anyhow.
Wow.
You don't
I
stop
really
breathing.
need to learn to do that because I feel like
Wow.
You
That
just
sounds-
dedicate 30
breathe.
seconds
I
of.
literally don't feel like
It's a
I literally
skill.
I don't breathe.
It's a skill.
That is a skill.
You just build it little at a time.
I love it.
It's
1 minute in
grounding.
the morning, 1 minute at night,
Isn't
1 minute
that
at
what the
night.
night is made for? Like let the breathing happen at night and the rush happen by day.
But do you
But-
find that you ever spin out during the day? Like,
Yeah, it's
boom, boom,
extra.
there's so many things to do. It's like a spin out. It's a mind fuck.
Denver.
It can be extra.
He's a dealer.
That was not the feeling of my day at all. Nope.
Right. Okay, so the connection to it and Avodah Zarah is that a lot of this is the mind is telling you if and when we have this, we're going to be okay. And it's all false. It's idol worship. It's not true at all. You're going to be okay because God's holding you at all times.
Like,
Like
once I
not
get the kids
because
to bed, I'll be fine.
yeah, and I just
Oh.
need this and if I purge everything out of my house, I'll have like it's all good stuff, but not to put our whole life in it. And then it's false and it eats us up and takes up all our energy. And of course we can do self-care and take care of it. Not to put our, if there's so much anxiety there, bring the awareness somewhere else. It's probably not good for you. And it's not the answer, and it's like idol worship, the modern day idol worship. So this mimer, I guess we're recapping, is to understand the concept of Rosh Chodesh. It's by the Rebbe Marash. And he wants to understand what is Rosh Chodesh all about. So Rosh Chodesh is called the head of the month. And we know that the head gives vitality to the rest of the body. Obviously, there's vitality everywhere. Well, where does the nerve get its energy from? The source is in the head and it spreads it to the body. So too Rosh Chodesh does that for the rest of the month. Also Rosh Hashanah is the same concept. And he wants to understand, well, what does that mean? And I was thinking, what's the depth of the question? I'm I don't know, but it's like a klutz kasha. What does that really mean? Rosh Chodesh is a day that gives energy to the rest of the days. What does it mean? What's this concept? What does it mean? So it's, I think, a very good question. Never thought, even Rosh Hashanah, it gives vitality to the rest of the year. We accept it as like just, it's the head of the hair, and like, what does it actually mean? And he's also asking, why is it that women celebrate this Yom Tov for Rosh Chodesh more than men? So he gives a little brief history lesson that the women in the times of who?
The Mishkan, right?
Before the Mishkan, right when they left Mitzrayim, right after they got the Torah. And Moshe, on the 40th day that Moshe didn't come back from Har Sinai, they thought he had passed away, and the Jewish people, or some of them, said, hey, let's make a golden calf. And so Aaron told them, the men, go get jewelry, and they went to their wives and said, we have your jewelry for this project we're building, a new God for ourselves. And they said, absolutely not, we're not going to give you anything. So they took their own jewelry and they made a golden calf. And because of that merit that the women said we're not going to be involved in this, they got the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. So he asks, this is a little strange because we know that women are exempt from mitzvahs that have to do with time, like tefillin and tzitzis and all the stuff that men do that are time-related, women don't have to do, or most of those mitzvahs. So why are we giving them a Yom Tov that is specific to a time? It's the day of the month, the first day of the month, which is tonight. So, yeah, it just seems a little odd. He also mentions that they used to calculate Rosh Chodesh based on the moon, so people would see the new moon being birthed, and then they know it's Rosh Chodesh. It's not necessarily time; it's about when something happens. Like it's a physical thing; it's not really a timely thing. But he answers that with saying that even then they still had like a calendar. They just waited it for the new moon to be born. But certainly in our days we run off a calendar, so it's all time based. So to understand that, we have to first understand what happened at this episode with the golden calf. And what happened was that the Erev Rav, which were a group of people that left with the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, they were, I guess, Egyptians or other foreigners that were there and witnessed the miracles of the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea, and they said, hey, we want in on this, and they converted, and they joined the Jewish people, and they brought this idea of let's make a golden calf to the rest of the Jews when there was a miscalculation in the time. Moshe was supposed to go up the mountain. He said, I'll be back in 40 days. And they miscalculated by like 6 hours. They thought he would come back, and he wasn't there, and they were really 6 hours early because he went up the night before, or the day, or whatever the calculation was. They were off, and the Satan also created some scene that they made it look like Moshe had passed, and they said, oh no, Moshe's not here, we need a new leader. And they quickly made this whole plan to make a golden calf, and they brought gold, they made a fire and threw it in, and the paper, the whole story. And this golden calf comes out, and they tell the Jewish people, look, this is the God who took us out of Egypt. So the Rosh is asking that this is so bizarre. You're talking about a generation that witnessed firsthand. They didn't hear stories from their grandparents about plagues. They were the ones that saw all this stuff firsthand. They were a derdea, he calls it. I guess you would translate it as an experienced generation. They knew stuff. They weren't smart. They had the experience. They were actually the ones that went through this. Not their soul, but also their body. You get what I'm saying? And then a few people come and tell them, like, this is the God that took you out of Egypt. And they're like, oh yes. Like, just because Moshe was 6 hours late, this was able to happen, that a whole generation that experienced God saw him pretty much. They didn't see any cows over there saying, hey, come guys, we'll get you out of Egypt. But they were like, oh, this is your God. Like,
Maybe he was transferred.
How did that happen? What happened?
There was a lot of magic done during the Makros.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe this was also some of these like little, magic shows.
Which was a magic show?
Maybe Space Eagle was a magic show also. Who knows? Maybe that was like emotional.
Oh, they thought like this was another miracle that God was doing?
Oh.
No, but they
that's a good
pointed at... You have a different time before that they pointed, they said, Zek Lehavin Ve'u. I'm not answering this question, I don't know. They pointed before, right when they crossed the sea, it says, Zek Lehavin Ve'u. What does that mean? Like, you can point and say, this was God. Like, the experience was what God looks like. They were at Har Sinai, like 40 days earlier was Matan Torah, right?
I think they saw the authentic God.
Yeah, like it wasn't a statue that's made out of it wasn't earth, a daimim, he says here. Like it wasn't a daimim, it wasn't a block of gold that took them out of Mitzrayim. Like this wasn't magic. I mean, it was a magic show what happened there, but like, yeah, but you know what, they were used to seeing magic. Egypt was full of magic, but not on this level. Even the Egyptians said, "Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do anything." So it wasn't about magic. They're like, "Oh, okay, maybe God is just gold." Huh?
They did it. They collected the gold. They were the ones doing it.
Yeah, they were also involved, right? Like, how did they come to? That's like the.
But not everyone.
That's the most stranger part.
Yeah, that's the bizarre.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right, you think just because of
Even more
6
bizarre,
hours
yeah.
late, that created this whole like confusion. Like maybe 2,000 years later, and
Maybe
we're
the
sitting
God
here and we're
years
like,
for
you
them.
know what? If you can take gold and throw it in a fire and a cow comes out, I'll say, okay, this is the
Maybe-
God. But like them,
Maybe it wasn't 6 hours though, because everything, like the time then was different.
I was gonna say maybe it's like in
no, they
dog
lived in
years.
our world. Okay,
Like-
guys.
No, their years were
Every
different.
hour is
They say
like
really that
4
it was
years.
like 40 years, but really it was a different amount. It wasn't actually 40 years, right?
I'm not familiar with that at all.
Oh,
I
really?
cannot-
Time was different.
I will
Their
not
days
comment.
are not like it is now.
I have no idea. I know they were taller then, apparently.
They were giants.
They were
Yeah.
giants. Their
And
time was also
dinosaurs.
different. Well, it's all relative. 6 hours then, 6 hours now.
Yeah,
It's
but
6
I
hours,
learned
whatever it
also-
was for them.
I learned that also it wasn't really 40 years.
Yeah,
It was like
hopefully it
200
wasn't 40
something.
years.
It was like
It was 200.
What was 200 years?
They were they were wandering in the desert.
It was not 40 years.
It was
You
like
guys have-
way more.
Which
No,
Bible
you should go
did
to
you
one of
learn
those
this in?
schools.
It was 210 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe
That
it's
was
That was in
Israel.
Egypt. It was
No,
supposed to be
outside
400.
Egypt.
It was reduced to
It was
210. Then they left and traveled in the desert for 40 years. That's
Even
what
if
it
they're
says.
6 hours,
No, but
6
the-
years.
They
it's
calculated
still
it different, like.
There's a different
I don't think the
calculation.
years were calculated different than they are today.
Check the midrash.
Yeah, can you get back? Ask your
Even
local
if it
rabbi.
was-
We'll ask the local Kabbalist. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's 6 hours.
They shouldn't do it either. Like it doesn't make sense.
It's the same people and it's 6
But
hours.
It's not the whole
I agree.
clock, whatever, yeah. Sorry, complicated.
They were fools.
Yeah. I mean, if you understand how that's possible and you can see yourself going through that experience where you witnessed like God's voice and then a cow came out of gold and you're like, oh my God, this is the cow, the God that took us out of Egypt. Like not, oh, this is a part of God and let's like, no, this is God that took us out of Egypt. A piece of gold, like a getchke. For
It sounds crazy,
it's
but
crazy.
there's obviously something we're missing here.
I feel like
Okay.
it sounds crazy to us, but everything was crazy back then.
Well, let's go on
That's
and
like my
see
point,
how
is
they
that
can make
everything
such a
was
mistake.
Bizarre.
Everything
Yeah,
is
they
bizarre,
had 6
right? That's
babies.
yeah.
I think it's a little out of the ordinary. I kind of understand why they would believe that a gold calf is God. Like,
I
After they
think
just
that-
experienced it.
because they experienced craziness, they experienced so many funny things.
Okay,
going on.
so the men did.
reality of it.
Like, not everyone though. It was only a certain amount of people. It wasn't
But
the
it
whole.
sounds like
population. He said only some people did it.
It wasn't the women, it was the men.
the
But it was all
That's the
men.
point here.
That's
Was
the point.
it all
That's-
men?
that's
Okay, fine.
Was it all the men? It probably wasn't all, but a lot of people died after that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a small amount of people.
And they stayed in the desert. Actually,
Fraction.
the whole
Yeah.
generation
I
had to
remember that also,
die.
like, it wasn't
And the whole
everyone.
generation.
The whole
that's what
generation
was
died
great.
after that. They didn't go into Egypt
Something
because of that.
else.
40
So,
years.
It
that-
wasn't everybody. How many people? Like,
I don't know, but that whole generation
because
died.
then they wouldn't have been.
Anyone
able to
between
reproduce.
20 to 60,
How were
that
they
died.
reproducing after that?
But
If
that
they were
was
all the
after
men.
the
doing it?
No, no.
spies.
the men from 20 to 60,
20 to 60,
for the
right.
next 40 years died. They could have produced another 40 children each.
Yeah,
until
okay.
they died.
20 to 60, I would've gone.
Oh wow.
They had many wives and they were doing 6 babies at a time. I don't know, but the kids were growing up also. They were able to be the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next fathers, the fathers.
They got married when you're 3 and 12, you know.
Yeah. So they all died. I don't think they were all involved, but I don't know. This is like basic Jewish history. We're busy learning Kabbalah here. Skip to the juice.
She needs to do a database.
Okay, so the concept is like this. Now we're going to do a little something that we learned in V'yadaita. It sounds like almost the same. Well, it is the same stuff. It says, what was Para's whole mistake? Para said, who is Havaya that I should listen to his voice? Like Moshe came and said, God said, let the Jewish people go, and he answered, who is God that I should let him go? Which part of God? We're talking about Havaya. Yeah. Okay, so who is he? He was saying, who is Havaya that I should listen to? In other words, Pari wasn't an idiot. He knew that God existed. He even knew the concept of Havaya, which means God that is beyond this world, not relating to all the details in this world. That would be Elikim, that creates separation, and Tzimtzum, and all the lovely things we have today that have life in them. They come from the name of God called Elikim. Havaya is beyond that. So he's saying, and also a lot of deniers in God, at least back then, were saying, Havaya, the one that created the world, like, he left. He's not too high to deal with all the details. And that's why they call him the God of gods. They recognize that he's God, but not the one that like we need to really answer to. He's too busy dealing with spiritual things. He's dealing with higher worlds. He doesn't have time for this lowly world. And he brings a few psukim that actually highlight this idea. Like it says, Hoidu lelekei elikim, like we give praise to the God of gods. Yeah, excuse me, I'm a little rusty
The
here.
was Aaron's idea.
What's that?
It was Aaron's idea, right?
When they came to
I don't know if it was idea, they came to him with this.
they
He
said,
didn't want to get killed because they came to someone else before and said, hey, let's do this. And he was like, no way. And they just killed him. So Aaron was like, okay, let's do it. Go get the jewelry. He thought it would delay the process. And by the time he would get back, Moshe would have come down. He knew like the timing was off, but these were hot-headed people. They were, I don't know what was wrong with them. Like they were very challenged. They had a great revelation, and that is.
They're totally traumatized.
Zelo mazeh, you can see God on so high, you can fall
So it
so
says
low.
that every time that Moshe went up in the past, it was for a day or two. It was never past a certain amount of days.
Okay.
And that's why they assumed that he was dead. Also because he went
But
up in a
didn't he
fire.
say it's
He
gonna
went
be
up in
40 days?
He went up in a flame of fire, so they assumed. I guess it's 40 days plus whatever hours.
So when someone dies, you build a golden calf? That's what
I don't know, dude. I don't build any calves. I've been, I'm burning their ashes when someone dies.
I think we're gonna learn the rationale of that, of like why they thought this.
Why
I
would
just
they
thought
so
it makes
desperate?
sense. It makes sense that they thought that he died.
Not
When they did
not
after,
that
it doesn't make sense.
right, not before.
So it says here something about the fact that they wanted the Eagle to represent God, not the instead of God. Like I'm reading like a little paragraph. Where are
Is
you
this
reading?
Chabad.org or some
No,
Christian
ECI.org.
site? Is this Catholic or Christian?
Yeah, right. No, this is actually Jewish. Shockingly, I went to a Jewish website. Generally, I go to like missionary websites. This time I actually went to a Jewish website. I'm always end up on the wrong
I
side.
heard missionaries were going around our neighborhood.
Yeah, we had
Tonight,
a knock
you
on
had-
our. Not today. Really?
Today.
Oh.
Tonight
Friday.
we were-
Mile, I think.
Friday we had.
What?
Why did you tell
You
them?
must see our
You
house
have the
run a
original?
mile.
What?
Mo said, I'm Jewish, and he said, oh, you're okay then.
Oh, but when I said I'm Jewish, they kind of more excited. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so I said, okay, bye. I have to go.
Yeah.
They answered if we took. I
I'm
just
not
know
asking
that.
them to
They were so proud.
They're
That's
so
the
good.
same
thing. They're
trying to teach us, we're trying to teach them.
That's
All
not
right.
the same thing as
Right.
missionary.
Right.
Missionaries ask you to convert. And then
All
ask
right.
you to
All right, deep breath,
Yeah.
deep breath. Bring your awareness back to where we're at. Okay.
Sorry, I
No, that's okay. I needed the break. I needed it. So now I'm done needing the break. So thank you for that. Let me try to continue. I'm having a hard time. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so what was the mistake? The mistake was that they thought, this is the mistake of Pare. He thought that this level, well, let's just call it God, Havaya, that God created the world and then he left it in the hands of the constellations, ministers, the higher ministers, and they're going to run the world. And it's not a lie. Like, the sun does makes everything grow. We need the rain from the clouds, and the moon also affects the tides, and these constellations do affect planet Earth. And we get our vitality through them. It's true. But their mistake is that these constellations have a life of their own, that they are actually operating ministers and they make decisions, they will give vitality to whoever they want, because God is way too lofty to deal with the physical world. So he runs the higher worlds, the spiritual worlds, the place where it isn't a place, or it doesn't exist in the whatever, a place where there aren't physical, where it's just spirituality exists. That's where God's running he gives his attention there, and runs everything over there with hashgacha pratis, which means, I don't know why it's translated divine providence when it actually literally translates as detailed hashgacha, inspection. What?
Supervision.
Yeah, detailed supervision. But divine providence is fancy, but like detailed supervision. God's running the higher worlds with his, making sure everything's in order. And down here, he gave the power to the constellations, and they decide how the physical world should operate. And that's why we say Hashemayim Shemayim Lahavaya, that the heavens is the heavens for Havaya, for this level of God. Va'aretz, but the land, Nasan Livnei Adam, he gave it to people. So the actual translation of the pasuk is that Shemayim, it doesn't mean the physical heavens, but it means the higher heavens, that the higher heavens are run by Havaya, and the lower heavens are run by man. And this only is the real intent of the pasuk, I think, is to separate that, like, there is heaven, like, there is heaven, a non-physical heaven, like there is spiritual worlds, and there are physical worlds, but not that, like, Havaya only exists in the upper worlds, and no, man, he gave this as a playground for us to play in, but not that he left it alone. No, he operates here also with hashgacha pratis, with detailed supervision. Everything that happens from the highest level, from Havaya. It's not run by constellations, but that was their mistake. Okay. And we went into a lot of detail in this in V'yadaita, if you remember. And that's why people make the mistake, and they start, like, giving their business credit for their income and worrying that they need to tweak it all day and all night, and not, like, have any time to set aside for davening and learning and things that, and the relationship with God is not important because I need to focus on making my business work for me because that's where I get my money from. That's the same concept of relying on a tool that God gave you, or relying, like, praying to the sun, I need you to make my crop grow. Like, no, it doesn't make us grow. It's how it comes through that channel, but that's not where we put our focus in. But Par's mistake and a lot of other deniers of God said the same thing. Yeah. Like we see in the land of Greece, all their gods are they're female. They believed that the constellation of Basula, Virgo, was their god. So they have all these goddesses that they, I'm not familiar with Greek, I don't know. But they were very into that. Because that's where they believe that their constellation, they pray to the Virgo, to the female constellation. So although this is true, that these forces do give us, or at least the life force does come through them, but we know that they're just a tool, they're just a vessel. And you're never going to praise the hammer for building a house. You're always going to praise the craftsman who does the work, and not his tools. So the mistake of Pare was that he said, who is Havaya that I should listen to? You're telling me Havaya said, let the Jewish people go. He doesn't operate here. This is not his domain. This domain was left to the ministers. And I see in my constellation that the Jews should stay here. I'm not sure if I just made that up, but there's something like that.
The Jews should stay
where?
where?
For everything.
They looked into the stars, right?
They really did.
What are we talking about right now?
Pare. We're talking about pare as a concept.
Oh.
I mean, also pare, but as a concept. This concept of believing that God doesn't really... I mean, we can make it very relative. Like, God doesn't really support me, my business does, and God doesn't pay my mortgage, I pay my mortgage. And we can take God out of everything and say it's operating through all these ministers that he created, which is me and you. And God doesn't love me. You're going to give me love. I can turn you into an idol.
Sure.
Or you got us.
And it's true. It's true. You could be, or
It's a lot
everyone.
easier now.
We're all definitely.
We don't even have to do anything.
I know.
So.
There I am.
If only.
We're all
Not the
ambassadors
laundry
of
episode.
love to each other, but don't ever get like caught onto something else other than God to give you what you need. That's the concept of the party. That these other ministers are in charge and have an actual choice in who they're going to serve. Yeah. So who do they refer to as God? They believe in God. They call him the God of gods. He's removed. He's the God of everything, of the gods, and we don't really deal with him. He actually doesn't have any, he almost doesn't have power in this world because he's handed it over to the smaller gods to deal with it. Right. So he's very removed and very distant. So this way, Paris says, I don't know Havaya. I don't know him. And he's gone. He left. And he left all the ministers in charge, whatever, to deal with this world. And therefore, when you come and tell me that Havaya says, let the Jewish people go, I'm sorry, why should I listen to him? Okay, let's end the chapter 2.